Oh, is that Bruce Trampler? That is Bruce.
Yes, it is.
That is Bruce. Bruce, how are you?
Great, guys. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Man, so not to waste your time, I guess we'll jump right into it. I think you had some, can you turn that sideways? Because the camera up and down blurs you out. They have some sort of weird software that blurs people out if the phone is up and down. Booyah.
Sorry, guys. 1 second.
No problem.
That better?
Actually, it's not. I guess it's just the service in Vegas. We'll deal with it, though. Don't worry about it. So you had something pretty kind of controversial, I guess, or factual. You said that Wilder Fury Gate was $19 million, and they still lost money. That kind of made you pretty popular amongst the hardcore boxing fans, especially those that hate Deontay Wilder. What can you give us some context to that tweet, please?
Nope, it's just dollars and cents. If you spend more than you took in, it's in the red ink.
So, if it was in the red for the, second fight?
Yep.
How do we make this third fight profitable so that it does happen?
Oh, the fight's going to happen. It would have happened if there hadn't been health issues. So it's just a matter of getting a new date for it and going forward.
You disappeared on us there. I don't know if you got a call, but your camera blacked.
Yeah, I did. I did.
Okay.
Am I back? I can see
you're
you
back.
guys.
You're back. You're back. So you're saying it's a matter of health issues only?
Yeah, the postponement was, yeah.
So, I mean, obviously you having a Twitter, I'm sure you've seen all the conspiracies in the Twitterverse of Tyson not being COVID positive and you know, hanging out in Las Vegas at exotic car rentals and Joseph Parker at the UFC fight. What did you take of all the hoopla?
Well, hoopla is always good. You know, they say if you spell the name right, you can say whatever you want. But no, a lot of guys got sick, and it's unfortunate. We hated to see the show go down. It was very costly for the postponement. But you rally and you pick it up and go forward again.
Is this a blessing in disguise? I mean, I feel like I think you guys pretty much announced that fight 30 days before the July 24 fight. Like, does this help it in any way to drum up more interest, sell more tickets?
That I can't answer. We'll have to wait and see how it plays out. But ideally, it would have gone forward on the date that we hoped it would go. And again, you move forward. It is what it is.
So you guys have this red hot prospect by the name of Jared Anderson. He goes by the Real Big Baby, and
right.
It's like he's in a bit of a situation, right? People are believing this internet rumor, but he can't really take credit for it because it jeopardizes Tyson Fury. Have you heard this new rumor of, I mean, obviously the Deontay Wilder's trainer is saying it on Boxing Scene, so I'm sure you read that Malik Scott is saying that Jared Anderson knocked out Tyson Fury in sparring, and that's why the fight is off. It's literally on Boxing Scene right now.
Yeah, it's a rumor is a rumor. It's unsubstantiated, and you know, Malik's doing his thing. That's fine. You know, it's ridiculous.
So, I mean, no, something like that. I mean, the phrase all publicity is good publicity. That's definitely not good publicity.
It's publicity.
Okay, I mean, and again, that's why I said unfortunate situation for Jared, right? Because
yeah,
had it been a different person, he probably could say something or take some sort of credit. But I'm here joined with a few different content creators. I got Maestro from Maestro Boxing, ringside reporter Joe Habib, and Bo from Three Kings Boxing. We were having a friendly debate on a few things here, especially the Canelo and Plant negotiations failing. But gentlemen, if you have a question for Bruce Trampler from Top Rank, I don't want to hog him.
Bruce, do you think this postponement favors any fighter, or do you think it matters?
Yeah, that's hard to say. It's a good question, and I really don't know. When both fighters are gearing up for a fight and they're nearing their peak of training and it falls out, it's like I could go back to Lewiston, Maine, and Muhammad Ali in the rematch with Sonny Liston. Ali he had appendicitis. Liston claimed it threw him off on his training. Everyone deals with these things differently. There's been many postponements over the years, and I wouldn't want to guess and speculate. I don't know.
Do you anticipate that we're going to see a better version of Wilder on October 9th? And do you think that was the best version we saw last time they fought?
Well, I have a lot of respect for Deontay, and if he says he's going to be a better version, certainly he can go back to the drawing board and see what he might do differently this time, whether it's in preparation or whether it's in the fight itself. He's a dangerous puncher. He's a great athlete. And if he says that, he must mean it. So he's certainly got a lot of incentive going to avenge the loss.
Now, Bob Arum took some ownership and self-criticism, even saying that, not all precautions were done. He even gave praise to Deontay Wilder's team for doing so. Do you know any specifics in terms of what type of precautions are going to be taken to avoid another COVID outbreak? Anything you could tell us about that?
I personally don't know what precautions, but I know there's a lot of very qualified people working on a plan to make sure this doesn't happen again.
Bruce, I do want to ask a matchmaker question, man. I know that that's kind of your forte there. So can you, I don't want you to tell me how you got started, but how'd you get good at it? I feel like it's very difficult to get fighters to accept fights on the lower level, right? Like everyone's trying to stay undefeated. And I don't even mean names. I'm not talking Olympians, I'm a few national champs, guys like that with 3 or 4 national championships, just trying to stay undefeated. I feel like it's so hard to get them to agree to fight each other because obviously those fights have a certain salary cap. So if you could just give me some advice and expertise on how you navigated that.
Well, every case is they're all individual cases. They all take different routes toward a fight being made. With some managers, they get it. With some managers, they're trying to protect an investment, and other managers overprice themselves. There's a lot of reasons a fight doesn't or can or won't happen, and there's when they do get in the ring, it's a minor miracle these days.
When you see a record like 7-0 and it's all debuters from South Carolina, is that something Top Rank passes on, or how do you approach something like that? Because isn't it the unknown?
When you take the smaller markets like the Carolinas or any in the Midwest where the promoters don't have much of a budget, they don't have television, they do the best they can with the money they can afford. So a lot of these guys are going to have bad records, but in the end, it's supposed to be entertainment, and they're not concerned with the records. They want to put on a good show for their customers, the people who buy the tickets. So the records are not that important. Years ago, until really maybe the 1980s, nobody even put out the records in a press release. They just said so-and-so's fighting so-and-so, and here's why it's a good fight. And often it was. Even at Madison Square Garden, they didn't put records on the posters or in the press releases unless it was a championship fight. Now there's so much focus on a guy's record, and you guys all know how to read a record. You can read between the lines and know what's a phony built-up record and what's a real record. So I think records are overrated, and it's really the caliber and ability of the fighters that should matter.
But specifically for promotional company, because you said lower promoters. So I mean, when a name comes across your desk and you don't know that opposition that fighters face, is that something you pass on, or do you still give some of those guys opportunities? Because right now we're seeing the age of, let's say, a Devin Haney, right? Well, obviously he was known, but he chose the Mexico route. And you got, Lovejoy, another person that got built up and got his big opportunity. A lot of guys are now going to Dominican Republic and paying $1,000 for a fight. They get these 10, 15-0 records in hopes of being picked up by someone like yourself or a Lou DiBello or whatever other television. So I just want to know how you handle those types of records when they come across your desk.
When you see a constant pattern of fighting inflated records or losing records, it gives you a pretty good idea. It can happen once in a while. Maybe there was a pullout and somebody's a late substitute. You have to be flexible in your thinking, but usually what we rely on is if you have a consistent pattern of fighting all setup records, you pass on. But the actual final deciding factor is you look at video of guys and you can see the skill set. You can see if the guy can fight and he just happens to be fighting overmatched fighters or the opposite. We like to look at video of fighters and get a good idea about how capable they are.
When you have a fighter, you have the bring along process for every fighter, right? When he's debuting on up. During that bring along, when do you know it's time to push him to see if he's ready for that next level or the next step?
Good question. It's pretty much a collaborative process between the promoter, the matchmaker, the manager, the trainer. For instance, we have a kid that we like a lot, a heavyweight, Efe Ajagba, and he's going to fight Frank Sanchez on the Fury card. And it's Efe's toughest fight on paper. And there was some concern and debate whether the match should happen, whether he was ready for Frank, who's a very good Cuban fighter. And eventually it was decided Efe had a say in it too, but you never want to listen to the fighter because usually they'll fight anybody. But Efe pushed it. His trainer and manager agreed that it's a risky fight, but it's one they think they should take to advance Efe's career.
Yeah, I was shocked when that one got made. That was a good fight, especially, you guys just signed Efe. I wasn't expecting that.
Now, if I say, when you're building an undercard, it used to be where the undercard was the prelude to the main event. Yes. But the undercard is what would bring people there because you would have good undercards. Why has boxing gotten away with putting together undercards that are worthy to get people there early so we can see all these fighters that are not necessarily televised?
It's funny that you say that because at least in Vegas, nobody shows up till all the undercard fights are gone. They show up now 6 o'clock local time is when the fights go on TV, and there's still thousands of empty seats. In Vegas, they come just really to see the main event and don't pay much attention. Whereas if you're at home watching on pay-per-view, you want to see the whole card. You want to see good fights. But it's not so much about attracting viewers or fans to the live arena with the undercard. It's just you're putting guys on who benefit from being on that card, getting some exposure, at least from the media that's there, and hopefully fans are there also. I remember when we first used Diego Corrales. He was in a 4-rounder at Caesar's Palace outdoors. I think it was the Hagler-Leonard card. And nobody knew who Diego was. And we gave him a shot on the undercard. There was no one there. The sun was shining in everybody's eyes. And Bob Arum came up to me the next day. He said, "I really like that kid you had there, Corrales." because Aram sits through every fight, the first 4-rounder to the final fight, and he's a real good observer. And he said, I want you to use Corrales again. I like this kid.
Bruce, how do you decide, or are you involved in, have any say so, and can you tell us the decision process on cutting someone? I've seen you guys cut Ivan Nahara, and I'm like, damn, there was only one. I think I'm right, and he only suffered one loss, and then he got cut. And then my Dominican brethren, Elvis was doing so good, and boom, one loss, and he's out in the cold. I almost feel like I feel bad for him. Yeah, so like, what is the process so that these young fighters know, man, what they got to do and not do? Because it's hard out here. I didn't think Elvis was gonna get cut. I thought he'd get another chance, being as though he got so many rounds on Top Rank.
We liked Elvis a lot as a person, as a fighter. The shame of it is that the guy who beat him, Kenny Sims, we haven't been able to find a spot for him on upcoming cards, and reward the winner. But that was a non-boxing decision to let Elvis go. In the case of Ivan Nahara, he lost the fight, yes, but he also failed to make weight about 3 or 4 times in a row. He didn't take it seriously, and we just said, go do something else. You're not going to screw up our shows by being overweight constantly. Great kid. Personally, I liked him so much. But as a professional fighter, he didn't make the cut with us.
Can I ask a question, Ness?
Sure, jump in.
Yeah, hi, Bruce. This is Maestro. I wanted to ask you about the potential of Sean Porter, who's not a top-ranked fighter, getting a fight through either purse bid or directly through negotiations with Top Rank with Terrence Bud Crawford. What would be some of the challenges either way, if it's a direct negotiation or if it's through a purse bid situation?
Sure. I've known Sean and Kenny. I scouted them at the 2008 Olympic trials in Houston. Great guys. They're Ohio guys where I went to college. And in the end, he made a decision to go with another promoter. But we've had meetings with Sean and Kenny here, and we had a lot of interest in bringing him aboard here. He explained that Al's his advisor, which is fine. That's up to him to decide who represents him. And we had interest in making it, but just couldn't make the numbers fit during the COVID times and without ticket sales. Eventually, out of nowhere, the WBO said to Terrence, you've been champion for quite a long time now. We want you to fight the number one guy. There were negotiations, but we couldn't make the numbers work for Sean and Bud to fight. And now that it's a mandatory, it's kind of out of our hands. It'll go to a purse bid unless the deal is consummated. And if it goes to a purse bid, that'll kind of tell everybody what the fight's real value was or is.
Bruce, you foresee it going to purse bid? I mean, I know it's 30 days, and I'm sure the 30 days is less at this point, but correct me if I'm wrong, but if it goes to purse bid and you guys lose, Terrence has no rematch clause.
Well, the rematch clause is a negotiable thing. That's up to them to work out. I don't know if we would have had a rematch clause had we done the fight through regular negotiations, but if it goes to bids, so be it.
Well, I'm pretty sure per the rules, as the mandatory, you don't give the champion a rematch. So Sean being the mandatory, Terrence isn't entitled to a rematch unless you can negotiate a contract before those 30 days and not go to purse bid. Hence, the champion can say, cool, I'll fight you for X amount of dollars, but I get a rematch clause as the champion. I'm pretty sure you go to purse bid and lose purse bid, you're going to lose the right to that rematch unless it could be negotiated back in.
Yeah, but you're forgetting one thing.
What's that?
Crawford's not going to lose.
Which brings me to
And
that.
I have a world of respect, and I'm very, very fond of Showtime Sean Porter. He's a great kid, great father, real good relationship there. But I think Bud's the best in the world.
So obviously, from a matchmaker standpoint, though, he's never you've never put him in with anything like Sean Porter.
That's right. It would be his toughest fight.
But why has it taken this long to be in there with a dog like Porter?
Well, first of all, the fight hasn't happened yet. But if it does happen, it's going to be because it was mandated by the WBO, and just like Teofimo Lopez and George Kambosos.
Do you see the percentages being an issue? Because I know that's one of the stickling points typically with purse bid situations.
No, it's not so much percentages, Maestro. It's just, there's a dollar figure that each guy puts on his value, what he feels the fight is worth to him to get in there. Well, now Bud's kind of backed into a corner by the WBO mandate, and if he fights, he's going to get a percentage of the overall purse bid,
60.
but he's not going to be able to negotiate that. He's just, whatever the bid is, that's what he gets his percentage of.
Can you comment if there was anything offered or talked about with Virgil Ortiz and Crawford?
No, I have no knowledge of a Virgil Ortiz Crawford fight at this point. I know Virgil's calling out Bud, and like any young contender, he wants to fight the best, and I give Virgil a lot of credit for that. It's admirable. He's one of the few guys who says he wants to fight Crawford. So either he needs a head test or he's just a tough kid.
D-Style, you're bringing that up purposely, right? Wasn't someone quoted saying that Virgil didn't want to fight with Crawford?
Yes, of course. Yeah, that was put out there.
By who?
Mark Riegel.
Yeah,
Oh,
Mike Kriegel from
Mark Riegel.
ESPN, but it was at least insinuated. But I just wanted to get that cleared up because Virgil denied it. So,
and it comes up in these chats constantly. Like, people hear one thing, and the next thing you know, people in the chat just assume that that's like the truth.
Bruce, you still have time? I got a few questions here from the people.
Yeah.
Ruin the 504 says, how has the art of matchmaking evolved over the years? And that's from New Orleans.
I love New Orleans. It's evolved mainly because of television. When I started out, a matchmaker's job was to put on the best fights that he could that would attract paying customers. Over the years, it became dictated by television what the fight would be that the network would put up money for. And then as you got these an increase in managers with big investments in the fighter, being more careful. They weren't about putting on the best fights. They weren't about putting on, the best versus the best. But that's how it used to be. Now it's each guy is looking out for himself. Each fighter is trying to get the most money for the least risk, and that's what it's evolved to.
Mr. Adore says, how difficult is making a deal with Eddie Hearn in Matchroom?
Actually, we've done a few fights with them, and they're not difficult at all. They're a different market than we are, but good guys. Eddie's a good guy. He's been very successful, and he's got a lot of good fighters, and there's no problem at all working with them.
Brandon Maurice asked the question that you've already answered on the updates on Porter Crawford. James Benitez says, if you were matchmaking Canelo and or Caleb Plant's next fight, what would be the criteria you use on selecting an optimal opponent? Social media, mandatory status, rankings, or a soft touch with a name? Just want to know how you would advise these fighters.
Are you talking about them not fighting each other?
Yes.
What direction they should go?
Yep.
Well, with Canelo, he's the most highly paid fighter in the business. He draws big crowds, draws very good TV numbers, and so he's the guy everyone wants to fight at that weight. I don't know if there's a real roadblock, any impediments between Caleb and him fighting. I know it hasn't been made yet, but hopefully it is. But in the meantime, they're each going to, if they go separate directions and do something else, that'll be up to their respective promoters to decide what makes sense, what's affordable, economic sense, and business sense inside the ring.
Big Casual says, do you believe we kind of talked about the COVID already? And you talked about the money of the fight. Brandon in Houston says, in your opinion, would Top Rank even consider an Adrian Broner versus Josh Taylor in Scotland? Broner is a name, former champ, never been stopped, and his best friends with the guy Taylor has been calling out, Tank Davis.
What weight are we talking about?
Shots fired. 140, of course.
Yes.
And AB can make 140, and he will make it, or
$1 million weight clause like Chavez.
$1 million. And he owes about much more than that in fines and penalties already.
Oh,
yeah, it would be a fun fight, but you can't depend on Broner. So
let me ask you your opinion on this fight as a matchmaker, right? Obviously, these two fighters aren't yours, so but please just entertain us because it's a pure fantasy fight. Tank Davis, Gervonta versus Keith Thurman in October. Do you think, as a matchmaker, would you say no? Don't put Tank in there. You know, Keith is a natural welterweight, or you think that's a guy maybe right now is the time and Tank can do it?
I believe Tank would fight him, but it's a physical mismatch, and I don't think Tank should go over 140. I was surprised he went up to 140, but no, I personally wouldn't care to make that match. I like both guys, but you're talking the good big man against the good smaller man.
And how is that different than like Gennady Golovkin versus Brook, or Khan versus Canelo versus Kovalev? Does this one not have that star appeal, you think? Like Mikey versus Earl? All those guys are moving up 2 divisions.
Well, Gervonta was most recently a 30-pounder. Then he went to, did he go to 35? Yeah. How he went to 40, I don't know, but Thurman's a big welterweight, so I just see it as a physical mismatch. I'm not picking the winner. I think Gervonta, and I'm not questioning Gervonta's manhood here. I think he would fight Keith, but I don't think it's a fair fight in terms of their size.
So my next question is from Ryan O'Rourke, and he's in Liverpool, but I'm going to change it all up to sway you in my direction. I've been telling my audience that if you make the offer, if you're the lead promoter, you're the A side. Am I wrong in that?
Usually,
I got you stuttering, so I'm halfway right if I got him stuttering, guys.
No, usually you'd be in the right. Depends who you've got though. So the A side can be with the other promoter.
So let's just be frank and put it on the table.
Come on.
I'm talking Canelo Plant. I'm talking Plant.
I knew he was setting you up for this.
I'm talking Plant is the one offering Canelo 40+ million to fight on his network, in his arena with his team's money. So ain't he the A side because he presented the offer?
No, he's not the A side.
Thank you. You told on yourself.
He's not the A side. He's the guy with the most money.
That's right.
But
The
that
attraction.
doesn't that make him just as powerful?
No.
Yeah, it could. Did Canelo say no?
I'm gonna take a risk and ask something here too, Ness.
Go ahead.
Who's offering the $40 million, Bruce?
Yeah.
Is it Caleb Plant or is it the PBC?
Of course, it's PBC.
Thank you. Okay, so we're 2 for 2 right now. I don't know if we should keep going.
I mean, but Bruce, tell him.
Canelo could afford to give him $40 million.
That's
He's
what I
got the
think.
money, but I don't think Plant has that kind of money.
There you go.
But
Bruce, let me ask you a quick question. What do you think makes more sense, having the fight on Fox pay-per-view or putting the fight on DAZN?
Plant and Canelo?
Yes.
They might split networks. You know, we've done that in the past. It all depends
Can't
who
split
becomes the
networks
lead
with an
promoter.
app. Can't split networks with an app, Bruce. Come on.
Okay, can I ask Bruce another question?
He didn't
Ness?
finish. He didn't finish. He didn't answer. He didn't answer.
Go ahead.
No, I don't know which makes more sense until you see where all the dollars are. Who's willing to pay for it.
Canelo was proven, though, he can sell pay-per-views, right?
Right.
But so he can get back-end money if the fight's on pay-per-view. But what back-end money would he get if the fight's on DAZN? That's my question.
No, it's a fair question, but whoever the promoter is has to be accountable for the monies taken in, and they'll whack it up however they wrote the contracts. Whether it's DAZN doing the whole thing, the live gate, the foreign TV, the DAZN money, the sponsorships, all the revenue sources, or whether it's Fox pay-per-view doing it, it's all the same.
Yep. So one of the great things about having you here, Bruce, is you're obviously independent on this. You've got no stake in the game, which honestly none of us should have as observers of the sport. But I'm going to ask yourself to put yourself in Canelo's shoes for a second, right? If you have a September fight, right, that would pay you in the neighborhood of 25 or 20 to 25 million on DAZN, right, where DAZN has shown you that if your opponent falls out, they're willing to fly in a John Ryder to replace the opponent and get you your money, as they were about to do with Billy Joe over the 24 by 24 ring thing, right? So if you had that on the table, is it unreasonable not to want to enter a situation where if your opponent is unable to fight for whatever reason, COVID, an injury, a family emergency, whatever, is it unreasonable to think that the former is a better situation than that fight falling apart and you ending up with nothing?
You're speaking from Canelo's perspective.
From Canelo's perspective, yeah.
We're as you stated, we're not his promoter. I don't know his mindset or his thinking. I couldn't answer or speak for the guy. It's a decision he'd have to make.
Fair enough. I want to ask you about a fight that's going to happen on August 14th. Andrew Maloney, Joshua Franco, trilogy. I noticed this in Tulsa. Was it not was Vegas just completely avoided because of what happened in the second fight? And also, was that a difficult fight to make the third time?
Well, to answer the first part of it, we had finished our hotel deal here at Virgin Hotels, and we didn't have a Las Vegas site for it. So the result of the second fight had nothing to do with where it ended up. We were already scheduled to go to Tulsa in August. We're going to Tucson, Arizona in September. We've got our schedule pretty well mapped out. Wherever the dates are and the locations are, that's where the fight would end up. As far as was it easy to make the match? They both wanted it. It was very easy. They both felt that they're the better fighter, and the third time it will be a charm for one of them.
Who would be the ideal opponent for a Josh Taylor right now for a homecoming fight?
Yeah, there's a lot of good fights with Josh. He's a good action fighter. he's actually talked about moving up and fighting Bud, but the reality is he's got a mandatory for his next fight with Jack Catterall, and that fight has to take place either in the UK or in Germany, wherever they end up putting it. But Taylor's one of those guys. If you remember when he broke in to the national or international limelight, he fought Regis Prograis, a real tough guy, and he beat him. And I'll just say Taylor's the kind of guy you can make a lot of great fights with him. There's 6 of you guys on the screen right now. I bet each of you could come up with a real good opponent for Josh.
Oh yeah. Can I ask a question, Ness?
Go for it.
Yeah. I want to ask you about a young prospect, the Puerto Rican Edgar Berlanga. I'm real excited about that kid. He's 24, 17-0. He just had his first fight go past the first round, but he's very exciting. So I'm just wondering, when are we going to get him to go from that prospect level to more into the contender status? Will that be real soon? Because I mean, he is getting, he's 24 now, so he's getting to that point.
How old are you?
I'm 37.
Okay. He's got time, right? No, the Damon Nicholson fight was what we consider a developmental fight. We tried to get Edgar some rounds under his belt for quite a while, and there were a couple times we thought he would at least hear the bell for the second round. We used to tease Edgar and say, you don't even know what it's like to come back to your corner and sit on the stool and get a rinse. Your mouthpiece comes out and all that. The Nicholson fight was very important to him. He now knows he can go 8 hard rounds. He almost stopped Demond in the last round, but he ran out of time. But it was very important in terms of conditioning, in terms of the confidence factor. But we're not rushing Edgar. He needs time to develop, and 1 8-round fight under his belt really is not a path to fighting title contenders yet. I'd say he's probably a year away from fighting contenders, but he's one of the most exciting kids that you ever want to watch. Yes, he is. He's terrific. So.
I got a question. It's not a question. It's more like I just want to ask, what was it like during that time when Bob and Don King was going at it, trying to promote fights? What was that like? Because it seemed like to be the golden age of boxing to me.
In terms of their personal relationship or in terms of boxing itself?
Both.
Okay. They're both the same age. They're about 4 months apart in terms of they were born the same year. And Don's already 90. Bob's going to turn 90 in December. They were on a parallel path. They were contemporaries, but Don was mainly interested in promoting heavyweights and Chavez Sr. And Bob was usually in the smaller weights, from light. Aram did do 27 Muhammad Ali fights. He was doing Ali fights before King ever, came around. But Bob was doing the great light heavyweights of the 70s, all those guys who fought in Philadelphia. He was doing the 4 Kings, Leonard, Duran, Hagler, Hearns. He was doing Alexis Arguello and Wilfred Benitez and Carlos Palomino and Danny. So they never really clashed. And the funny thing is, a lot of people don't realize that the first Leonard Duran fight in Montreal was actually promoted by a company called BADK, which was Bob Arum, Don King. They co-promoted that show, and they co-promoted Trinidad versus De La Hoya and a couple other fights. So it's funny when you see them together. I remember we went to a funeral in Los Angeles for for one of the for Dan Goosen, and they were both sitting on different sides of the church across the aisle from each other, and Bob was gesturing to Dom, "Come on over, sit with me," and DK was going, "Sit with me, come on." So Aram got over and they sat together during Dan's funeral service. They get along. The rivalry and the feud is way overblown. I think they have a lot of respect for each other.
Well, I got just one or two that popped up here from the people. We got Emmanuel Torres that says, "What's your thoughts on the potential Better Beef versus Canelo, as Better Beef is on Top Rank and Canelo's been mentioning him as a possible opponent?"
Yeah, the fact that they have two different promoters is not a big deal. It's very easy to make a deal if Eddie promotes it, if we promote it, whoever promotes it. No problem. I haven't heard Canelo say he wants to fight Better Beef, but if he has, that's something that could come together.
Yeah, he's definitely expressed it, and his trainer, Eddie Reynoso, has expressed it. My thing, again, from a matchmaker standpoint, is there no fear? Are you as confident as you took the stance with Crawford over Porter? Because Better Beef has been put down by lesser men than Canelo.
Yeah. As far as fear, the promoter doesn't feel fear. You make an offer to each fighter, and if they accept, if the terms are good with them, the weight, the opponent, the date, all the details, sure. I imagine Better Beef would say yes in a heartbeat, and I think Canelo, I don't think he's ever ducked anybody.
That is all the questions, Bruce. You've been fantastic, man. You went through the gauntlet with all of these guys, and we appreciate you. Tell Evan we appreciate him as well. Thank you for coming on, and we look to have you back on soon.
Yeah, it's great, guys. I love to listen to your ideas, and there's so much knowledge on the screen. I'm looking at you six guys.
Yeah, it's a packed house, man. This Canelo topic has us definitely on different sides of the track,
You guys are terrific. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's what it's about.
That's right.
Differences of opinions.
Yep. Hey, fellas, man, unfortunately, I gotta go. I just want to say,
Yo, if you enjoyed the video, feel free to hit the like, subscribe, and share. As always, if you want to support us to the next level, head over to the patreon.com/ThaBoxingVoice. We have tons of exclusive from Border Wars, Entitled, betting shows, the list goes on and on and on. But in addition to that, if you guys have questions for fighters, trainers, and promoters, this is where you can submit them. We will run out, get these questions answered, and put it back on the show just for you guys. Appreciate it. Peace.